Okay, so welcome everyone, and please welcome my today's guest, Alejandro. Alejandro is a strategic brand identity designer based out of Costa Rica. He founded CENTOR STUDIO in 2006, and also he worked 7 years at Amazon as a customer service manager. Welcome, Alejandro. So glad to have you here, man.
Thank you, Ankit. I'm very excited to be here. When you told me that you were doing this podcast and you invited me to be part of this, without any doubt, I just jumped in and said yes because I for once I really admire what you do. I really respect you as a designer, and I think the value that you add to the community is just amazing. So yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, actually, we had so many conversation off the record, and I wanted to officially be on the record. Like we share so many values and communication skills and everything. So yeah, glad to have you here. So I think I would like to know very much that how did you transition from like a customer service manager to becoming a brand identity designer? Because I think these are very separate things.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe to add like more context to that, I would have to say that I started designing back in 2006. So my business started developing more in the side of web design, and so yeah, graphic design was a big part of it, and brand identity didn't exist at that point. And what existed was just logos, and that's it, and was just like very undervalued. But then the 2008 crisis happened, and that affected a lot of my business. And so at that point I just didn't know much about business. I was a good designer, but I just suck at the business of design. So I decided to play safe. I was studying laws at that time in the university, and I decided to play safe and join Amazon. And I spent there, way more than I thought I would. And I started, climbing the corporate ladder there. And at the beginning was like super difficult because I was just used to, let's say, work, I don't know, 10, 20 hours stops a week in my business. Now here I had to work, like 40 hours a week when I didn't work that much, and then sometimes even 50 hours a week. It was just insane. But anyways, I decided to start, learning and growing. I think that Amazon provided, a really good platform to learn a lot of things that I just needed to learn. And so I decided to take that opportunity, that chance, and I started first as a customer service agent, then as a supervisor, and then I had the chance to be a manager. But then, I mean, that was kind of my goal being there in Amazon. I just wanted to be a manager. I didn't want it to be an ops manager. I didn't want it to be a customer service managers. I just, my career was kind of a stop, and I was like, yeah, okay, where do I go from here? Then the pandemic hit, and then I was like, I'm kind of curious, whatever happened to design. I kind of went back to started reaching out in YouTube videos and see, whatever happened to the industry. Because what happened is, like, when I got into Amazon, I was full on just, growing there. And even though I was, doing design internally, I totally disconnect from the world from the industry of design. And so I didn't know that there was YouTube channels. I didn't know about anything, or even that, this metamorphosis of design, where it went from just aesthetics to something very strategic with, brand design and brand strategy. So I totally disconnected from all that. And the pandemic kind of, gave me an opportunity to, sit and think about what is it that I'm really passionate about? What is it that really I love? And I said, I just need to just quit this very safe and stable job that I have right now, and, jump into the cold water, and then, start my own, like, kind of restart my business and relaunch it. But then what I did is I took the whole 2021 to really define, what is that I want to do, give a structure to the business that I want to learn, kind of refresh my learnings and everything. And then, yeah, this year, 2022, I think it's just the official relaunch of my business.
Yeah. Interesting. And interestingly, you have survived two financial crises, we can say 2008 and this COVID-19 thing. So after
Yeah,
this financial crisis, what I've noticed so far that during the COVID, a lot has changed in the design business. Like
yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of more business pop in after the COVID-19 thing hit. So what do you think changed? Like what this pandemic changed in the industry? Like a lot of new business are popping in, and we are getting a lot of work opportunities from different kind which we never saw before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that there is a combination of different things. I think for once, people like have like more time to think about things, and the
Hmm.
kind of this huge situation gives you a lot of perspective, gives you a lot of room to think, and then I think that was the thing for me. I just needed to decide what was really my passion, because all of a sudden you realize that like tomorrow is not granted. Like you don't know if
Hmm.
you're going to be here tomorrow, so you might as well be doing something that you really enjoy, and not just be just working in autopilot, just earning more money and that's it. So I think that is an element, that time of reflection that people have. The other thing is that because we were sent to work home, and that's something that happened to me working at Amazon, um, I think that we were kind of hesitant of this idea of working from home. And
Hmm.
now like we have this opportunity, and we were forced to test, that, this was actually a possibility. And because we tested it and we see like, oh, so it's not a big deal. So it's like being in the office, but just being at home. And of course there's a lot of difference, but pretty much it works, it's functional. And so that gave this span of possibilities to a lot of people to develop lots of different businesses that you can develop online. So I think it's just that we were able to see opportunities that we were not seeing before, and there is a lot of resources online that allows us to develop different businesses. So I think that in the United States, what happened was this big resignation that they're calling, that a lot of
Hmm.
people start quitting their job. And it was like very interesting, because all of a sudden they kind of got like sick and tired of working on their same 9 to 5 job, and then they said, you know what, maybe there's more to me. And I think that the freelance business is proliferating because of that. Like people are like taking advantage of the skills that they have, and the
Hmm.
opportunity that you have now to offer those skills online to be able to make a profitable business. So I think that's, in this case, in this situation, I think those are like a couple of two elements that happened.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm seeing this like after the pandemic. Before the pandemic, this was very common, not that common, that people or the MNCs would outsource their work to, we can say, like third world countries where they would get
Mm-hmm.
a lot cheaper and say similar quality of work done. Let's
Mm-hmm.
suppose a design studio who's looking for some art, and they will hire a freelancer, let's suppose from a third world country, let's say Brazil. So they know that they will get the similar quality design at the much lower price. And
Mm-hmm.
this business quite boomed after the pandemic hit. Like people were not working from their studio, so they were outsourcing a lot more job. So do you see any changes after the pandemic in this third world market where people are offering their services to the overseas client?
Mm-hmm. So I have to be honest. I don't have too much reference like before the pandemic in that sense.
Hmm.
Just because I was just totally immersed in the corporate world. And so I have no idea about Fiverr, about Upwork, about all these platforms, and about all the freelance industry anyways. And so in 2020, I jump in, and I start seeing all these opportunities, and start kind of evaluating, okay, so what is for me, what is it that I want to do, what type of design I want to do. um, but what I can compare it to, it was like from when I started designing back in 2006, maybe and until 2020, 13. none of those opportunities were available. Like the thought of working online for somebody, overseas, it was
Mhm.
just like crazy. Like you couldn't even think about that. So in my case, even though like I were creating websites, which is something available worldwide, of course, I didn't have that access to opportunities outside. So I think that what happened, and we can talk about like different changes that I saw after that graphic design coma that I experienced for 7 years
Mhm.
when I woke up, like what I saw different. But one of the things that I saw different was that the knowledge was kind of put available to all the public. I'm looking for the word, maybe it's democratized, but I'm not sure if that's a real word. I'm just making it up.
Mhm.
But what I noticed is that like a lot of people like, so for me, coming from a third world country, in this case Costa Rica, um the the access that I could have of to knowledge about how to develop my skills as a graphic designer was like super limited. And as much as I was um like, let's say, curious, and I looked for different resources online, like content creation or content marketing was not such a thing, or online courses were not such a thing. There were websites that were sharing how to do certain things, and that's how I learned everything that I learned. I just learning online, but the quality was not that good, because the
Mhm.
people who really had the knowledge, like the really really big knowledge about those skills, they were just teaching those things at big expensive universities, and they
Yeah.
had no motivation to just go ahead and share it. So when I started in 2020, looking at, let's say, YouTube and different other platforms, and I saw people like, let's say, Chris Doe, sharing what he knows about, mostly the business of design. I mean, my mind was blown away. I was like, holy cow, I'm getting all this information for free. And what happens is that I think sometimes a lot of designers, they take these things for granted, because most designers, just kind of join in when everything was like this, and this was kind of the status quo. But
Mhm.
then me, who kind of make a big pause of 7 years,
Yeah.
I can just jump in and say, holy cow, like this totally changed. And, like this is very, very different. And so I think that I developed a really good appreciation for this content creation creators, and I just became addicted to consuming all that content and learning, and yeah, I think this is super super valuable. So with that information, with that knowledge, I think that people like me, and maybe like you, we have access to this information that, and also, for instance, not only like free resources, but also like paid resources, but
Mhm.
that are accessible. Like they don't have prohibitive prices or anything. For instance, the course of Michael Janda, which I totally recommend, is like, let's say, like $300 to $400 or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a big price for a lot of people like us. Like, to give context, $400 is what I pay for rent.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole month of rent for somebody like me here. So it's not cheap, it's not a little money, but it's something accessible. It's not like $20,000 to get just one course in one big university. So I think that the access to that knowledge has made possible for people from all over the world to offer high-end quality services. Of course, there's a wide spectrum of quality of services, but I think that access to knowledge, that access to develop skills, made it possible for this to be actually a real possibility.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I think you talked about Upwork and Fiverr. And I've been to that platform. I actually signed up for the Upwork, not for the Fiverr.
Mhm.
And initially, my thought was that they are charging $10 for a logo. So I will do 20 logos per month and I'm all set. That was my initial thought when I was like just figuring out what to do and how to make money. And that's my concern. Like a lot of people there are treating design as a commodity, like
Mhm.
just like selling apples. Like I will make this much amount of, and I had the discussion with my friend when I was just starting out, that I have charged $50 for a logo. The people there are charging $10, so I will have to work less. So that was kind of my thought. And until and unless I found out about the Crisdo and the money they are charging, and it opened a whole new market for me. Like, oh my god, I have to learn so much about the business and design and everything. So why do you think that I've seen a lot of like established creator are also, even they are now in that market. Let's say if they are not on the Fiverr, they are on the Upwork, and they are too afraid to take the jump, like charging from $50 to 1500. So why do you think that are they too afraid, or there's their imposter syndrome? Why do you think they like that? Because I've seen their work, and
Mhm.
i- if they have not copied from anywhere else, they
Mhm.
are very good artists. So why do you think
Mhm.
they are too afraid to make that jump?
It's just a mindset issue. That's it. It's just not a thing of the skills. Like if you have the good skills, it's just a mindset issue. I remember like one of the questions that one of the designers I talk about to ask me one day was like, how did you become confident with your skills? And I think it's just like there are some stages that you go through. Then like first of all, you need to be 100% confident in your skills. You
Yeah.
cannot even start increasing your price or anything if you're not 100% in your skills, sure in your skills. So I think that's step number one. Like you
Mm-hmm.
cannot start competing with big design studios or anything like that, or big agencies or anything if you don't have the skills. And I think that there's a difference between having the right mindset and being just delusional. And
Yeah.
so if you don't have good quality and you start charging big prices, you're making a disservice for the client, and you're making a disservice for yourself, because you're just going to be frustrated for having unhappy clients or whatever, not valuing. So first of all, focus on your skills. And so once you develop your skills, like test it. So
Mm-hmm.
different ways that you can become confident with your skills in a safe place. Because sometimes so you went through the courses, you went through the training, you have been taking different tutorials and stuff like that, but then the jump from the kind of a theory to offering client services at good prices, there is a big gap there, right? And so the jump is super scary. So I think that it just like taking like an iterative approach where you start, kind of a scaffolding, and then you say, okay, so first of all, with those skills, I'm going to create some practice. So I'm going to create, let's say, some practice logos, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to come up with some brief, that I can come up, and then I am going to design a logo to solve that problem. Okay, that's step number one. That's a very safe environment because you control everything. You control the brief, you control the time that you dedicate to that, have a deadline. So this is very safe. Now, once
Mm-hmm.
you do that, you move to the next phase, which is then look for a client that can be like, or look for a person that, or a business or whatever, that kind of looks like the type of clients that you want to work for. And so tell them, hey, I'm just like learning, I'm just really practicing my skills and everything, and I would love if you can give me the opportunity to create a whole brand identity project, let's say, for instance, and that will be totally for free for you. The only thing I'm gonna ask in return is just a good testimonial, and that's it.
Yeah.
Boom. So that is a really good idea. Why? Because the fact that they are not paying you is removing a big risk that you're taking. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
taking one step, which is you already know that you can come up with a good design. You already proved that in your previous concept work. Now with that assurance, with that certainty, then all you have to do is just like remove that barrier that you cannot work with a client, that you cannot translate their thoughts into, design and all this type of things. And so that practice with the safety that, well, if everything goes wrong, what happens? Like, they're not paying you. So
Mm-hmm.
the worst thing that could happen is just, that nothing happens. And
Yeah.
so it's a very safe environment to start practicing this relationship with a client, really talking to them and understanding them and asking good questions and all this type of things. Now, once you went through that, like once you have, given your work for free, which sounds, terrifying for a lot of people, but hey, how much would you pay to have like a really good portfolio that you're proud of? So you're actually, acquiring a good value for free. So it's
Yes.
just having the right mindset. And so once you went through that and you built a portfolio, then you can prove with that portfolio that you can solve problems for clients. Now, the next barrier that you have to remove is that people are going to pay for that. And so, but now you have a portfolio. Now you have
Mm-hmm.
something that you can use to, attract this new clients. And so once you have your first client and you charge it well, then that the last, bit of, block that you had in your mind is removed, because you
Yeah.
have all the criteria to say, okay, so I can design a good, a good thing. I can translate strategy into design. I can handle clients, and clients can pay me for this. What else do you need? You're ready. And so after that, you just, just value yourself, value like what you can do, what you know, and then start charging accordingly. Because the minute that you start charging $50 per logo, you're sending a strong message. Like, this is the quality that I can provide. Now, the thing is, do you provide $50 logos like quality? Is that the quality you can provide? If the answer is yes, okay, so you need to go back to the first step and then train your skills and then really learn and really be confident with that skill, and then, go through the process. But I think that, most designers, at least that I know, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a problem with skills. Their quality is not $50. Their mindset is $50. But their
Yeah.
quality is really good. So all they have to do is just believe in themselves. And I remember that last year, when I was, working on all this, a client from Romania came and asked me, hey, how much would you, it was more complicated conversation like that. But he asked me, okay, so how much would you charge me for a brand identity design? And I said $6,500. And he said, okay, and how much for a website? Okay, that would be $5,000. Okay, so when can you start? And I was like, what? Is this simple? And then I was like, wow, this is and then, you know, I realized that all I had to do is just, believe in my skills and then charge a
Mm-hmm.
good price. And that's it. It works. But I think that the biggest limitation that you have for charging more is really to um stop thinking with your wallet. Because if you ask me, can you pay $6,500 for a logo for you? I'll say no. I can't. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
take that amount of money. Maybe for a website, probably, if I didn't have the time to build it myself or whatever. It's not that I don't think it's worth that. It's that I don't have that kind of money. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you think with your wallet, then that's I think the number one mistake. Because yeah, you would not be able to afford it, but for clients, that is just like nothing. I mean, that's my rant there.
I can definitely agree with you because I was on the same journey. I've started with the free spec work. I shared it in a group where there were a lot of alumni who have taken the courses, and there were some experienced designer there. So they were critiquing the work which we were doing with the courses. So I shared my spec work, and one of the client like people saw there and they reached out to me, hey, do you want to work on our brand? So I said, yeah, I will. I'm not experienced, but I will work with you for free. So I think they wrote a comment on my post that I really like your work and we are looking for the same thing. So I reached out to them and I agreed to work with them for free. And I said I will need your testimonials and all that kind of stuff. So that project is still on my website. But what I learned that I still remember that on the first discovery call, I was not able to speak properly because I was too hesitant to speak on the camera. And it was, I think, my first Google Meet that I was too afraid to look directly into the camera and talk with them. And there was a language barrier. Me coming from India, they coming from the Denmark. They were not trying to pick, like they were unable to pick my accent. I was unable to pick their accent. But still, we tried to work it out, and it resulted into a good identity mark. So yeah, until and unless you work with a real client, you will not get that confidence. Even if you do a lot of spec work, you need to at least take that, what we can say, leap of faith and be vulnerable. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And what I found that with the third world countries and the creators around me, we really have that issue with the money mindset. Like, and I'm still working on it, but it's like it's a whole lot of work just to get over the fact that you do not have to be continuously working. That's a mindset I have to work on. Like what I've see all around me, that people are going to job 9 to 5. They're super busy. Even if they are making half of what I make just working 8 hours a day, 8 hours a month. Let's say I work on a project 8 for 8 hours, and I will be making what they make in a year. So, but still, that mindset is there that they are busy 9 to 5, and it somehow affects our mindset also. That am I too like free, or I do not have any work? So that kind of mindset is also there. And with the pricing, it's the same thing. I was watching a reel on Instagram, and there was an Indian student in the New York, and she went to the mall and she picked an apple, and the price tag was $1 for a single apple. And I was too shocked. I was like, I can get a kilogram of apple on that price. So that mindset is still there when and I think the client expect the same thing. Like the cost of living is so low in third world countries, they expect us to be cheaper. So what do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think that a creator can do, in like the third world creator can do to show that I am worth the price that you are getting in your own country?
I think that first you have to adjust your mindset. That's first things. I honestly don't think that I'm living in Costa Rica. Honestly, it's like, to me that's not relevant,
Yeah.
because I just happen to go ahead and buy my food here in this country. But it could be that I could live in the States, or I could live in Canada for all practical reasons. So the fact that I live here in Costa Rica does not change anything, like does not affect me in anything when it comes to my business. Why? Because this is not only a limitation. If we were back in the 90s or in the 20s or the 20,000s, 2000s, that would be a limitation for sure, because then it's like, okay, what school do you went and what degrees do you have and all this type of mindset. But now that's not true. Like, if you're connected to the internet, you have access to all the knowledge that you need to to be able to provide a good service, to develop your skills to provide a good service. So it's not relevant where I'm located in terms of my business. I think that what is relevant is the skill that you really have. And so first of all, I would say just adjust your mindset in terms of that. Second, I would say you need to prove, like, you really need to prove that then, yes, you're worth, let's say, $5,000, $10,000 for a logo. How do you prove that? Well, with a portfolio that looks like $10,000. And so I think that there's people that are trying to get projects for $10,000, but when you see their portfolio, it's not $10,000. Let's put it that way. And so there is a lot of improvement there. And I'm not saying, that my portfolio looks like $10,000, but I think that it does look like 6,500, which is what I charge for one of the identities. And here's the thing, like, I see a lot of people like asking me to charge more for my services, and I will at some point, but it has to be like gradually increasing, those prices. As I start, doing those services and charging those prices, and as I start to hearing yes, yes, yes often, then that's a sign for me to, start raising my prices. Because if I just go from charging $6,500 to $20,000, in my mind, that's a big, huge jump. So, what's the hurry? I can start, gradually increasing those prices. And let's say in 2 years, I can start, charging $20,000 for a logo. So I think that that's more doable, that's more realistic than just asking me to make this jump. So the fact that I can charge $20,000 doesn't mean that I should do it right now, because sometimes when you're trying to modify your mindset, you cannot just shock it to and scare you away from charging these things. Because you start charging $20,000 for a logo, and then you start hearing no, and then you say, oh crap, what did I do? And so it can happen, because the fact that you change your prices doesn't mean that you change your market. And it could be you're fishing in a market that they're not willing to pay $20,000. It needs to change not only the price, but also the type of clients that you're having. There's a lot of changes that need to happen before you can start making those changes. But going back to, I think that what people from third world countries need to do is just like, listen, just make sure you develop your skills, have a good portfolio, have good references. Because then one of the things that I did was I look at the best studios that I could find for brand identity design, and I just reverse engineer what they were doing. And so how do I know that my quality is good? How do I know that I have a good portfolio? How do I know that I have a good website? Where do I pick up, the criteria to feel confident about what I have? Well, I just look at who's doing it best, and who is actually, acquiring big clients, and who's, doing all this. And that's why I started with one website that it was kind of focused on me and a lot of things. And then I just morphed into this other type of website that I have right now. And it doesn't come just with my own ideas. It doesn't come with just like me sitting one day, like drinking coffee and saying, you know what, I should change my website into this. It's like, where are you getting that criteria? And I think that's a mindset that I have from my background in laws. And so I always say this, like, let's say that you are, you're a lawyer and you're in front of a judge and you're saying, hey, I think you should put this guy in jail because I believe he's a thief. And then the judge might say, hey, I really don't care about your opinion. Give me the proof of what you're saying. So opinions, like, everybody have them. Like, it's like, that's not useful. So if you have an opinion of your website being cool or not, that's not useful. But then what you need is the proof. What is the criteria that you're using to define if your website is good, if your portfolio is good? How do you know that? And so a good way to know that is just ask for feedback for people that is, like, known in the industry, or that has already some degree of success in the industry. And they also can, give you input on how to improve. When I was building my website and my portfolio, I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and feedback is not comfortable, but is necessary. And so that's a really good point of criteria, feedback, then reverse engineer what other studios are. If you just took that piece of advice of reverse engineering what, high successful studios are doing, man, just fly with it. If you can only just remember one thing with this conversation and you go do it, that's it. Like, reverse engineering, I think, is one of the most important tools or weapons that I have used. So do you want to build a successful Instagram page? Okay, go visit the top, performer Instagram pages in the industry and just reverse engineering what they're doing. I did that from Christoph, from David Tallis, from, Michael Janda, and I just analyzed everything that they were doing and reverse engineer what they were actually doing. And based on that, I modified my own Instagram. Like, I actually checked websites, let's say, for it's interesting because you also have to have something that is really, really, and I don't think this is teachable. I think this is something that you can develop yourself within time, which is the good taste.
Yeah.
This is something like incredible, because if you don't have good taste, you can believe that your portfolio is good when people, they look at your portfolio and say, yeah, no, I don't like this. And so if you don't have good taste, you can even confuse this advice of reverse engineering. And I tell you why. If you go to Pentagram, which is one of the world's most famous branding studios, their portfolio is not good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but their portfolio is not that good. When you see the structure of their cases, when you see their mock-ups, the amount of mock-ups that they have, I was like, what is this? And so if you don't have good taste, and if you don't compare a big sample of references, you can be led to think that, oh, this is how you do it. And also you can be led to think that then you have to do as Pentagram is doing. And what you don't understand is, if you were the size of Pentagram, then you do as Pentagram. But if you are the size that you are, okay, so act like as the person that you, or as the business that you can be, and refer more to something more realistic. So yeah.
Interesting take. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I think so. You made a decision to, like, for me, what I'm doing now, that I'm running as a solopreneur. I'm a one man shop. I'm like able, like I would have not made clear it on my website that if you need additional service, I can hire external talent and manage them. But you went with the full studio route. So why do you think, and what's your strategy behind this, like running one man shop and being in studio? So why this change?
Okay, so this is a very good question. And when I was starting to develop my strategy, one of the things that I did is I asked, I paid for some coaching, and Michael Janda was one of my mentors. And so I asked him this question because I was not able to find anywhere online the answer to this. Like, should I brand myself as a freelancer, or should I brand myself as a studio? And when I asked this question to Michael Janda, I think that his answer was brilliant. And I never seen this anywhere. He said, well, what are your goals? What is the goals for your business? Do you want to be a freelancer, or do you want to be a studio? And this answer is going to be different for everybody. If your goal, like medium long term, is to be a freelancer, that's all like you care about, there is no reason why you should be branding yourself as a business. But if your goal, like medium and long term, is to be a studio, there is no reason why you should be wasting time branding yourself as a freelancer, when you could be leveraging your brand already as a studio. And I think the beauty of these times is that we can adopt the Hollywood method, which is like, when you go to a movie, the end of the credits, you see all these studios in collaboration with this studio, in collaboration with that studio, visual effects by these, visual effects. And so it's not like Hollywood Inc. produced this movie and that's it, and all of the employees work for Hollywood, like if Hollywood was a company. But it doesn't work like that. And so this model of the big agency that has all these designers, I think it's going to work for big like corporations and stuff like that. But is for most of the businesses, this doesn't work, because then the price that you have to pay for that is super expensive, because you have to maintain all this of these big amount of employees. What is more smart in terms of like cost is, and of course an opportunity, is to have a network of other freelancers that you can reach out whenever you have a project that you need additional help with. And so, for instance, I see you as one of the designers that I'm going to reach out at some point, to ask for help. Or I have other people in Mexico, or I have other people in London. And so I think that having that network of, trusting that somebody can do design even as good as you do or even better is so important, because then the client doesn't care about that. He could care less, like, who are you working with? Did you pay them a salary? Are they 9 to 5? Are they contract by freelancer? Are they contract? They don't care. But in your
Yeah.
mind, you're thinking that, oh my God, if they just find out that I'm just, a one-man band, and that I'm a fake studio, I don't know. That is just like so 2000s. That
Mm-hmm.
is just a mindset from, another era. Right now, we're working on, businesses that collaborate with other businesses. And I think that part of that mindset that you have to adopt is that you are not acting as a person itself, as you. That's it. You're acting as a business. And the importance of adopting that mindset is that then you need to think about developing systems and mechanisms so that you can scale up your business. You can delegate your business to somebody else. And so develop like a good process on how you develop your brand and whatever, so that when you're, let's say, delegating your project to another brand entity designer, you can clearly communicate what are the steps that you're expecting that designer to take. And
Mm-hmm.
so seeing yourself as a business and not as a person, and let's say as a freelancer, is really important if what you want to do is grow. If you just want to just offer professional services for the rest of your life, then yeah, by all means, leverage your personal
Yeah.
brand. But then it just goes with, what are your goals? What do you want?
Interesting take. I'll have to think about my goals too. That how do I wanna how I wanna proceed with this. And interestingly, as you have worked with the Amazon, and they are a big company who's known for collaboration because they don't have their own inventory and that kind of thing. They don't produce anything. So what were the skills you learned from there which you think has helped you a lot managing the studio?
Well, I think that one of the things that I learned a lot was to think very systematically,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that Jeff Bezos says that good intentions don't work, mechanisms do. And so it's like, if you just think about, let's say, anything that you can think of your business, how do you know that you're going to be successful? What is the criteria that you can hold on to say, okay, I'm going to be successful? Um, your good intentions alone are not enough. So I developed this critical mindset with myself of
Mm-hmm.
of like a lot of people, they say, I want to be my own boss, right? Or stuff like that. But they don't mean that. What they mean is, I don't want a boss.
Yeah.
Because if they really meant like, I want to be my own boss, then they would also adopt the responsibilities that comes with that. So now you're responsible for your own business. And that means that you are going to act as you were the boss of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of accountability, like, how are you asking results? If let's say if you were your own employee, how would you be asking yourself for results? You're spending a lot of money in yourself. You're a big expense in this business. So
Mm-hmm.
what are the results that you're asking yourself, that you're demanding yourself? And what mechanisms do you have in place to make sure that you check that quality consistently, and that you achieve, the goals, or this type of things? So in my case, I had the mindset in Amazon to make like first weekly reviews and analyze what happened, during that week, and then make like weekly plans, and say, okay, this is the plan for this week. But in the same time, I would refer those goals from the monthly goals. So it's okay. So my weekly goals are based on my monthly goals, which come from my quarterly goals. So it's not just like I'm just going to sit down one day and say, what the hell am I going to do with this week? No, it's just I have a whole framework. Is okay, so from the goals that I put myself for this quarter, what is that I'm going to accomplish this week? And just select top 3 things that you want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overwhelm yourself with 10 different things. And then at the end of that week, you review what happened, and you say, okay, so this is the main highlights that happened this week. This is the main challenges that happen. This is let's say the lessons that I learned, and then let's review the goals. So did I achieve this goal? Okay, great. I didn't. Okay, why? Why did not achieve that goal? And sometimes it's, well, because on the way I learned that I had to do this other thing instead, or I had to recalibrate. And so there's a lot of reasons why, like a lot of valid reasons why you don't achieve your goals. But it's like asking yourself that accountability every week. What happened with these goals? What happened with this? And if you do that consistently, then, whenever you're going to have employees that you pay them, a 9 to 5 job or whatever, then you can have this type of meetings. You can have, this type of processes that you have been adapting for years. It's not something new for you. You already are doing that for your own business. And it's just about teaching them where this, the benefits of doing this. And you're going to have, your team, and you're going to review weekly whatever happened and blah, blah, and making plans, because this is something that's already in your DNA. And so I think that mindset of being very structured, very organized, like planned, and all this type of things, and having criteria. Because in Amazon, so one of the things that I loved about Amazon is that they were all about the leadership principles. So the leadership principles were like the 10 commandments for Amazon. So it's just like this rules that this principles that you have to follow. So one of my favorite leadership principles was leaders are right a lot. And what it means is like, yeah, leaders are right a lot, not all the times, right? It's a lot, not always. And so leaders are right a lot because they don't believe this is what it says. They don't believe their own, it's complicated, but it's like they don't believe that their body odor smells as perfume, kind of a thing, which is to say that they don't believe that they have the monopoly of the truth. And so what it says is like they consistently look to disconfirm their beliefs. So they have a belief that they don't have, a way to confirm yet. So they are constantly asking, okay, so I think about that this can be this way. What do you think? And they ask for different points of view, so that with all this information from all these intakes, and most importantly from data, you can either confirm or disconfirm the belief that you have. And so at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so you have this idea, you have this concept. What is the criteria that you have to say that this is true? Where is this coming from? And I think that also this mindset is for me has been very important these times, because it happens a lot with fake news. People don't have this mindset at all of, oh, I just heard this, whatever. Okay, wait a minute. Where did that came from? Like, did you verify, the sources of this? Is this coming from credible sources? People don't do this type of things. And this is especially destructive in your business. If you just don't stop and say, where did I came up with this idea about blah, blah, blah? And so if you're constantly looking to disconfirm your beliefs, you're just going to, challenge your business, grow, learn, adapt, whatever you believe in. Yeah. So, I mean, I could talk about for hours about what I learned in Amazon that I'm applying with, in my business. But I think, this mindset of being structured and systematic is just like something that I love.
Definitely. And I can honestly say that you are the most organized person I've ever met, because I've seen how organized you are. And
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's the problem with the creatives. I think I've heard the discussion somewhere that creatives find very hard to organize themselves. Like if you look their workbench, nothing is organized there. So there's a thought that creatives cannot be bound by that process. So there's a common, we can say that creatives like to work free. And so how do you think that that being systematic and being creative are the separate thing, or they can be done together?
I think that constraints boosters creativity. So when you have a process that you have to follow, when you have constraints, when you have a color palette that you have to use, when you have a typography that you have to use, when you have certain graphic elements you have to use to create a graphic composition, that boosters creativity. That doesn't limit creativity at all. And so you have to think of creative ways that you can use this limited amount of resources that you have. And when you see, for instance, a brand identity system, when developed, this is kind of one of the best examples of creativity, because you have a lot of constraints. You can only use these colors. You can only use this typography. You can only use these graphic elements. And when you see all these things spread in different applications, use very creative. It's just not like stamping a logo into something and putting a color in the background and that's it. That would be very easy. It's just creating all this, gamut of, different elements, and you see the cohesiveness. You see all the elements that connects each other. That's creativity. If you just came with a bunch of, random elements and whatever, it's not very creative. I mean, just like, that's just random. But when you're forced, within certain constraints, that's when you really have to be creative and think of ways to come up with, innovations. I think that what I've learned in Amazon is creativity has to be, it always happens. It always flourishes the best when you're just giving very certain rails where you need to go through. If you're just giving, let's say, a blank page, you're gonna have a hard time to come up with something good. But when you're giving a brief, let's say, with very clear intention, very, very clear goal and everything, I mean, the job becomes easier because now you have a clear idea where to go. Now you have a direction. So I think that the same goes for being organized in your business. You can say, oh yeah, I'm a creative. I have my own disorganized order. And I think that is just BS. I think just like people is being just lazy to be organized. They're not prioritizing. They don't know the consequences of being disorganized. And here's the thing, when you're organized and when you have this mindset, this really high standard of, yeah, I'm going to be the most organized person that I can be with my business, then is this going to just impact in such a positive way in your business. I have seen it, for instance, in my case, when I have the kickoff meeting with a client and I show them the onboarding portal, and I show them, all the tools or the things that, that I create in Notion, all the order. I tell them, okay, so let's talk about feedback. This is my expectations about feedback. Don't tell me I don't like blue. Just tell me, okay, how does blue affects the goals that we already have? Here's the goals I already talked about. You don't have to look them for it. Like, they're right here. Here's the project. Here's all the faces of the project. If you want to see the progress of the project, you can see it here. When you see, you put that organization, you can think it of putting limits to the client, or putting boundaries, or putting rules, or you can see it in a very negative way. But in actuality, the client what is thinking, wow, I'm in really good hands. This guy is really organized. I'm going to be really taken care of. So this really gives a good perception of you, of who you are and how serious you're taking your business. And this gives, this sends a message of trust to the client. Even if when the project is already ongoing, but also most importantly in the initial phase, being organized, dude, it's just like, it goes a long way to give a really good image to clients.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can agree. And I think this is the main distinction between an artist and a designer. Like, artist is someone who is given blank slate and he has to come with something depending on whatever creativity comes to him. But a designer has a set of constraints, and I can definitely agree with you. And since you bring
we're
up the
not
point,
artists, by the way.
no, I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't even draw properly. I think I have quit in drawing around the 10th standard because I was so much into science that I didn't have time for the drawing and art and craft and that stuff. But I was good drawer in my class up to that moment. So you were talking about building the trust with the client, and I think I was having interesting discussion on Clubhouse. I don't know if you were on that room. So there was a guy which Christo brought on, and I think he's a sales coach kind of thing. And I had the question that how long do you take to build a rapport with your prospective client? And the response I got that you do not want to be friends with your client. And was little bit taken aback, like I'm not sure, because whoever I have worked with, I've been, we can say, a good friend to them. And even though I think the client I'm working with, we go like we schedule 1 hour call, and most of the time it goes above 1 hour. Like he's in psychology industry, psychology niche, and I'm very much interested in psychology and branding and that kind of stuff, psychotherapy and mental health. So when I'm having discussion with him on calls, it can go beyond 1 hour mark, and we are talking about his experience, my experience, and the stuff going on around the world. So how? Oops, no worries. So how do you think that should you be friends with your client?
I think that what happens is that when people say that you cannot be friends with your client, they're just thinking of one type of friend. So they put friendship in just one box, and they say, okay, so friends is the ones that you go hang out, you drink a lot of beers, and you get wasted, and you think about life and whatever. And so yeah, when you think about friends in that context, yeah, it maybe that would not be appropriate to be that with a client. But what I've learned about friendship is there's a lot of different type of friends. So there's the type of friend that you have at work, let's say, that you have a lot of things in common. You talk about your challenges, your goals, and things like that. So but it keeps it keeps it like like an appropriate vibe all the times, because you want to be appropriate in the workplace, right? And so there are some limits that you're going to put there. When you have, let's say, when you're in university or whatever, you have some classmates, it's a relationship similar. You have a lot of things in common. You're talking about things that you can understand, that you can relate. And whenever this chemistry that you feel like, oh my god, like I can get this guy, this guy gets me, whatever, there is this chemistry. But it doesn't mean that you're going to go drink beers or do different things with these people. Maybe yes, maybe not. So what I'm trying to say is that you cannot put friendship in a box, because there is different type of friends. You have friends that you can tell your most inner thoughts, and you have friends that you can just go have a drink. That's the only expectation that you can have with that friend. So in that sense, you can definitely be friends with your clients, definitely. Because you can put some boundaries of what is actually appropriate when it comes to actually having a client. But if you're talking about real friends with a client, I think it has to do with two things. First, how is the chemistry that you have, you have like a lot of things that is in common. How do you feel talking? Like there's a lot of energy back and forth and whatever. And then another thing that is very important is, what about the maturity of that client when it comes to business? Because for instance, right now I'm working with a client that I consider my friend, and we talk a lot about the way that we actually started was as accountability partners from the future, and now I'm building his website. He's been delaying a lot his end of the bargain, and so actually last week I said, hey, this was going to happen. You have been delaying this project for 1 month. So right now, and we had a contract, you see, so we are friends, but we have limits. So we have a contract, and I said, okay, according to the contract, if you delay this project more than 1 month, then I can charge you more for whatever extra expenses this is going to cost me. Because for me, it's very expensive having a project delay, because that means that I cannot take more projects in the future. And so I don't want to charge you more necessarily yet, but what I'm going to do is this, so that so both can be, in the same page. So I'm going to put this project on hold, and for this project to be, lift out of that hold, then you're going to have to pay me the 50% of the next payment that you were supposed to give me. You need to give me the information that I have been requested you that it has been delayed, and I need a commitment that this is not going to be delayed again. If within 2 weeks I don't receive this, I'm going to cancel the project, and I'm not going to be able to pick it up back. And I'm super clear. I'm having these difficult conversations, and we don't get it personal, you see. So we need to be able to understand, if I'm going to be more friendly with a customer, with a client, then I need to kind of measure the level of maturity of that person, so that we can both keep a professional and a friend relationship. And so it is possible. It's complicated, yes. It's like being friends with an ex, right?
Yeah.
So is it possible? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. Now, that's when it comes to being a friend, right? What you call a friend. Now, being friendly, that's a whole different game. You should be friendly with all your clients. You should act like a friend. Actually, in Amazon, there is one of the customer service tenets is treat your customers as a friend. And so the attitude that you have towards your clients, it should be this friendly approach. You should treat them as if they were your friends. And so when it comes to the attitude that you displayed, no doubt, you should treat them as friends, definitely.
Definitely. And for me, what is the big change that when I'm doing the strategy, and since I'm working with the more personal brands, which are one or two founders and co-founders, so when I do strategy with them, so they are opening a lot. Like the process I follow, it's a lot empathetic, and we find out their why, their purpose, their mission, their vision. So sometimes when we ask the questions and empathetically, they open up a lot. If like we are able to match their vibe, they open up a lot. And I think it really depends on how much they are opening. Like you do not want to be the oversharing one. Like you start sharing your all that past trauma and everything. You have to let them come first to you and be friends. And if you want to pursue the relationship, so I do this a lot. Like I tell myself that when I'm doing the brand strategy, I'm being a therapist. And as a therapist, you might open a lot, you might even cry, but we have to keep this professional. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
Interesting
definitely.
take.
That's what we are. Like, we are brand therapists. This is not different. And the job of a therapist is not to provide all the answers. It's to ask the right questions, and because the answers are inside. So the questions are just the tools to be able to pull out that from there. Because otherwise, your thoughts, your mind, it's just this mess of like neurons going on. And so the only way for you to be forced to put cohesive ideas together is if you're asked a question, or if you say, okay, I'm going to journal about it, I'm going to write this down. And so the minute that you verbalize in any type of way a thought, you're doing an exercise of putting together a lot of ideas in a way that is cohesive. And sometimes when you do that, you're like, oh my God, what is this? I never saw this before.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the experience that they have. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And I've tried like doing the same questionnaire which I do for the client and trying to answer it for myself. It hasn't worked out with me because I don't know. There's a bias in myself when I'm trying to answer this question.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. There's a limit that you can do for yourself. I was kind of listening the other day with the other interview that you had, and I saw that point, that there is so far that you can go yourself, because you have this blind spots, and that you don't see, of course. And so that's why feedback is so much important. And definitely, yeah.
And it's like you have all the answers, but someone has to say that to you. So
Exactly.
I think it's an interesting quote. I don't know from where, that you don't want to listen the opinions. You just want to reaffirm your opinions. Like, so that's the case there. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have that question for you. Like when you were starting out, so how did you network to find international clients? What was your strategy in the start?
So welcome to my number one challenge.
Yeah.
This is the number one challenge. I think networking for me is different because and a lot of people that live in different countries are going to maybe empathize with this, which is like when you're hearing this advice from people like how do you get your first client, for instance, and they tell you, well, usually it's going to come from your family, from your friends, from the network that you already have. And in my case, it's not like that, because I don't have friends that have that amount of money.
Yeah.
My clients, they don't look like my friends here, but they don't look certainly like my family. Like I live in a whole different world. It's like if I went to be a digital nomad, I don't know, like in India, I'm just like
Hmm.
such an stranger there. And that's how I
Yeah.
feel in my own country. Like I'm so different. Like and the clients that that I want to acquire, they're just so much different.
Hmm.
They have so different budgets. And so I think that the beauty of the opportunities that you have nowadays is that we have the ways to actually connect with people around the world. And so the thing is that you have to have this mindset of networking, and do it with an intention of relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you do it with a mindset of, hey, I'm going to start a relationship with this person, I'm going to start knowing this person, get to know this person, and not just with a mindset of I'm just going to make a business, I'm going to develop this as a content, whatever. I think the minute that you start just acting as everybody was a business contact and that's it, you would see them in a very I don't know, just not organic way. So I think that the
Hmm.
way that you should develop like this connections is, don't expect anything from them. Don't expect anything. Don't think like, well, I met this guy like 2 months ago, how come he has not given me a referral or whatever. It's not like that, because sometimes it can take years for somebody to bring you a big client or whatever. But
Yeah.
once you have that referral, it's like, wow, like I'm glad I met this person, I'm glad like we developed this relationship. And I think that is really a game of patience and a game
Hmm.
of time. And so you need to really focus on looking different opportunities where you can get this connections. What I do, the strategy that I'm using right now, is to look at adjacent services,
Hmm.
communities of adjacent services where I can be useful. So for instance, right now I'm part of a community in Clubhouse that has that they have about 30,000 members, and I'm one of the moderators there already. And so one of the things that they do is sharing about marketing tips. So
Hmm.
I come with part of marketing, which is well, they see branding as part of marketing, I see marketing as part of branding.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to question that. And I give my point of view when it comes to branding and all this type of things. um and so I think that this is important because we are not competing against each other. I don't do marketing. That's something that I don't do, but they don't do
Hmm.
branding. But they need each other. They're like a different phases of a client's journey. And so
Yeah.
if I focus on developing relationships with people that have, that offer adjacent services, then is a win-win. Um, another adjacent service that I think is really important is, for me at least, is brand strategy. So there's a lot of brand strategists that they don't offer this type of services,
Hmm.
brand identity. And so that's a win for me because I can join their communities and start making friends and whatever, and then get those referrals. um but what I say is, like, you need to find ways to make yourself available. The first client that I got him from the future community. The so the future has like this academy, this circle that comes from the
Hmm.
academy, which means that every time you buy one of those courses, you have access to this community. You don't have to be part of the pro group to be part of that community. And so what, like, I don't know, for some reason that client found me there. I asked him, where do you find me? And he said, well, in the pro group community. Oh, in the future community. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't know how that happened, but I think one of the things is, like, you need to make yourself available. And so make comments, like people's stuff, or add value
Hmm.
there in those communities. And then somehow they're going to notice you. And also, like, be on the lookout for opportunities. So this is, I think that the first part of what I just said is kind of the passive type, the passive side of the things, but also you need to be proactive, because you can friend zone relationships and you don't want that. Like, I think that for me, that has been a challenge, because when you like to give and give and give, you don't feel comfortable asking. Like these days I've been asking for referrals. Dude, this has been like super uncomfortable for me. And I have to kind of break that mental break that I had, like, oh my God, I'm not going to ask for referrals because what are they going to need? Like, or they're going to think that I'm just needy guy that doesn't have clients that are asking for referrals, or that my business is broken, or like all this type of crap that you know make up in your mind. And when you just think about it, well, this is how the business works. Like, you get referrals to clients. If you don't have referrals, you ask for them and move on. Is that simple? And so what, like these days I've been asking for referrals to my clients, to past clients, to people that I've been talking to for a long time. And so there's nothing wrong with asking for referrals. Nothing. What they're going to ask, like, what they're going to say, like, how dare you ask me for referrals? No, they're just like, it's part of the business. This is how it works. But then if you never ask, you never get. And this is part of your, you need to be active in your own marketing, is that, you need to break that, because I think that most of us designers, we're kind of introverted, and this is not our, necessarily our comfort zone. So we just need to get out of that comfort zone and start, asking their, and sometimes the worst thing that they can say is, I don't have anybody in mind right now, but if I come, towards somebody, then I can send you your way. And now you're, putting yourself available in their mind as an option to refer, where prior to that, maybe they think that you didn't need any type of clients.
Interesting.
And so, you need to be proactive about your referral game. Another thing that I have noticed is, I mean, at this point I just have a mix of things that I've learned, so I don't know who's this from, but I heard this from somebody. It's not mine, so that's for sure. Is that you want to be proactive in your referral game, because some when you ask most of the freelancers, or people from the creative community, where do you get your work from, right? And they're gonna say, well, 90% comes from referrals, and so the problem with that is that you don't control referrals. So you don't control people referring you. So you want to make sure that you also are doing inbound marketing, so that you're harvesting at some point those leads and becoming into clients and all that. So you don't depend in into referrals, but also you can be proactive when it comes to referrals. One of the things is that prior to you, like, let's say when you're already in the kickoff meeting with a client, you already got the client, everything, you say, you know what, I'm going to do such a great job for you that one of my goals is that you refer me to 3 people by the end of this project. So just keep that in mind. Think about who you can refer me to by the end of this project. I'm going to ask you maybe 3 names or something, but I'm going to make such a great job for you that you will want to really refer me. And this is really good, because for a lot of reasons. One is really good for the client to say, oh, okay, so he's going to put a lot of work. He has a lot of motivation to make this project successful. So this might answer some of their concerns of, how do I know this project is going to be successful? Well, because he wants it to be successful, so I can refer him people. So you're giving them like criteria to trust you. And then another thing is, like, if you're asking them in advance, like, hey, I'm going to ask you at the end of this project, not now, but I'm going to ask you at the end of this project, if you're 100% satisfied with this, just think about 3 people that can be benefited with my services. And they have all the time within the span of your project to think about people, to then start thinking about options. And then if you mention 3, it's a good number to ask, because then they don't, if you say, if you know what anybody that and then ask for 3. So if you ask, you get. If you ask for 1, you could get 1. But I think I don't know about you, but 3 is more than is more than 1, and so I like more. And so it's just a good number. So other than that, I think that you should not be afraid to go back to the past clients that already trust you and say, hey, I'm just, currently looking for a new product for this month. And I was wondering if you have in mind, anybody that I can be benefited with my services. That's it.
Interesting.
And so they already trust you. And if you're putting yourself available to receive more work, then you're on top of mind for next time that they hear a conversation. Oh, my logo sucks, whatever. And then you're available in their mind. And they say, well, I happen to know somebody that is really good at logo designing, whatever, and can refer you. So I think that it's just about first building those relationships and then not being afraid of leveraging those relationships, because there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we're all in business, so it's part of that.
Yeah, and I think being top of the mind is very necessary. So you have to be in contact with your past clients or people who are your business friends, so that whenever they need someone, you are instantly comes to their mind. And for that, how important do you think what they call inbound marketing is? Let's say what I'm seeing so far, that there was an interesting post on Twitter where they said that you do not share this design due to, like what I'm seeing, and it's been going on for past 2-3 years. Like every creator who's just starting, like there's the business, they are sharing tips, tutorial tricks, and a lot of that kind of stuff on their Instagram and social media and whatever social platform they are on. So the tweet said that share your work and case studies. That's what will get you hired, not your tips, tricks, and values what you are providing. So what's your take on this? How should you, like, what would be the content strategy of a new creator who's just starting out, new freelancer? So what should be their strategy? Should they share their tips, content, and valuable lessons, or should they share their work and case study? Because there's a lot of differing opinion uh, between educators who are just like telling you content strategy.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most trickiest questions, and I have to be honest. To me, has been a discovery. I have been changing my opinion the last year, and when it comes to this, and lately I have made a change when it comes to what I'm doing right now as content marketing and all this. But I have learned, I think, one of the biggest lessons, which is you need to make a difference between short-term results, content marketing strategies or marketing strategies, and long-term results, marketing strategies. If you don't know the difference, then it's like not knowing what tools are for what, like, and so you're gonna end up using the wrong tools at the wrong time. And so you need to first understand what is your situation right now. So what do you need right now at this very moment? And so, like right now, for instance, I'm in a phase where I'm kind of in the middle of a couple of projects that are not cooked yet, that I'm not green lighted. And so I'm like, well, I need more projects. So by the time that I get, like those new projects and whatever, then there's going to be a time where I'm going to be, well, I don't need more projects right now. And so I'm going to be like in different times. And I have been, like, last year was a whole different game. So I didn't need projects the whole last year. So I could focus on content. I can focus on things that could be long-term. But if you need something like short-term results, content creation is not the way to go, because that is going to give you long-term results. And so you need to really ask yourself, okay, what do you need right now? And so if you really need right now clients, then you need to focus on short-term marketing strategies. So that means leveraging your relationships, ask for referrals, go back to clients and ask them, like, do you have like more work for me or whatever. And even you can join this. So the way that I see Upwork, for instance, is that you can see it as a source of, let's say, survival money. So in times where you're not, having these big clients and whatever, and you still need money, you can leverage that. You can, work for clients there in Upwork, whatever. But just like know that that type of work is just like survival money for some time. You need to focus on really get these big clients. So that's first. So focus on things that is going to give you short-term return if that's what you need right now. Now, if let's say that you already work with some clients, you already have some money saved, you have a good runway, you're not pressured by getting new clients. So in that case, what you should be doing is working on long-term strategies. So what are those? Well, first of all, like start building relationships with people that can bring you businesses. And this can also be with other designers. People confuse that.
Yeah.
I think that people think that the fact that you're another brand identity designer doesn't mean that that you should not be leveraging that as a networking. I have got businesses from other designers as well. They're just too busy to handle the work. That's how it works, and it's just one of the actually easy ways to get clients and works and projects. And so leveraging all the or like building relationships, either maintaining the relations that you already have or building new ones, is a long-term strategy, because it's going to yield results until like a certain time in the future. But you need to work on that consistently and continuously. And so another thing is just content creation. So you need to start creating content in Instagram, or let's say creating a blog or YouTube or podcast, or are you doing, or things like this. Now, here's the thing. What I have also discovered as another point of criteria is that content creation also serve as a tool of positioning. So how do you want to be positioned in your market, in the market that you are? Like, how do you want people to know you for? And so content is a really good tool to tell people, okay, this is me. This is what I am. This is what you can expect. And so I actually realized that I was sharing a lot of tips, a lot of information, a lot of, and it was valuable. It was not just a hack for blah blah blah, which is a lot of crap that you can find in Instagram.
Yeah.
But when you can really focus on creating valuable content that can be helpful not only for other designers but for your target audience, which is another thing that you also have to consider, is not creating content for other designers, is creating content for your target audience, things that can answer to their pain points. So that is something that is really, really important. But also, one thing that I noticed about my Instagram feed is that if you go look at it, can you say that I'm a brand identity designer? I don't know. So where's the proof of that? And so when I say, okay, maybe what I'm going to do, and that's why I'm telling you, this is a thing that for me is a discovery process. So maybe what I can do is start sharing more work and sharing case studies. I kind of, let's say, redesign my portfolio. And then 80% is work, 20% is advice for my target audience, so that I can be positioned as an authority, as a thought leader in the area, that I know what I'm talking about, that this is not just an accident that I created, this is stunning, this is the work, but also share what I can do, so that you can go to my Instagram feed and say, oh, he's a brand identity designer. He does brand, or he does branding, or whatever. And it's clear. I think that the problem that we have nowadays is that you go to the feed of different people and you really need to read the description and try to understand, because sometimes they come up with clever ways to say things, very complicated. And you say, what are they saying? What are they offering actually? What are they, selling? It's confusing. And so confused clients don't buy. That's as simple as that. And so I think that you can use your content as an act of positioning. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now. Changing that mindset. I'm actually redesigning my portfolio and uploading that into Instagram. But let's say, okay, I upload my first case study with all the mockups that I have in mind. Then there's going to be a phase of uploading valuable content, like some carousels and so on and so forth. And then it's going to be another case study. And that's how I want to balance it. I don't know that I'm not saying that I have the answer to this, but this is what I discovered so far, and this is what I'm testing.
Interesting take. Yeah. And I agree with that part that like doing content marketing is a long term game, because as you said, it will help you position yourself, and in the long run it can make you like a thought leader in the industry. So if you are looking for that position, content marketing is a big game. And I think let's say you are a UI designer, so I don't think sharing your work on Instagram will generate more leads than sharing it on Dribble or Behance or platform like that, where people are specifically looking for that kind of work. So that was the interesting take there. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think that you should wait, and this is something that I'm going to do. You should find creative ways and trendy ways to
Hmm.
share your work. Because one of the things that I've been analyzing is the reels that are more successful is reels that are actually having trendy music on it, and that the edit goes with the beat of the music.
Yeah.
And so this is just like and remember the concept of reverse engineering. This is
Hmm.
like just look at a like the most popular reels and think about why is this popular, why is this appealing. And for us it's just really easy, just go and look for the most famous branding reels, and you
Hmm.
will see that it's reels that goes with trendy music. It start with a process, let's say it's sketchy, and then
Yeah.
boom 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 boom, a lot of mockups, and you're like, wow, that looks really good, that looks impressive. And so you can share your work in a very trendy way, and you can that way you can potentiate your reach. and
Hmm.
um and I think that people think that you cannot get clients from Instagram, and I don't think that is true. The thing is that it's a balancing act. You need to think
Hmm.
about content, but also you need to think about showing your work. In one way, you cannot look like an encyclopedia of branding, but in the other way, it is not your portfolio. So it's just very delicate balancing act, Instagram, and it's changing all the time. So it's a big
Yeah.
challenge.
And the thing with reels, I got really confused. Like I've seen serious brand who are not very funny and quirky, and they are brand ambassador kind of doing that pointy kind of reel thing, where
Oh my
on the beat
god.
they point out the text, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
wow, you are going so off brand and you didn't even notice. So there's the
Yeah.
delicate balance with going with the trend and staying true to your brand values. So that's the delicate
Yes.
balance.
Yes, because then you're confusing. Oh, so you have that personality. I didn't know about that. And from the beginning, I said, I refuse to dance. I'm not gonna dance. And one of these days, Gary Vee uploaded a video that said how to leverage TikTok nowadays. And he said, spoiler alert, you don't have to dance. And I'm like, okay, this that's a good way to introduce your video. But yeah, I mean, I just think that I just think that people sometimes they just follow trends blindly, and they just are thinking about reach and reaching people and getting to more people. And I think that if you're a big brand like Coca-Cola, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're just trying to target very specific audience with a very specific message, I mean, there are better ways.
Hmm. For sure. And there's a like what you can say, appeal to virality, like you gonna go viral, but what for? Like you will attract a
Yeah,
lot of not interested people to your page, and even if they become your
exactly.
follower, what's the use? Like the conversion rate will be very low. So there,
Exactly.
the content strategy needs to be like planned, like I'm gonna not dance. Interesting take.
Yeah. I'm not gonna dance. Oh my god.
Wow. And just when you said the Gary Vee, the thing which popped into my mind was hustle culture. So how do you think, like how can a designer hustle, or is it not our thing? Because there have been days where I've been thinking a lot, and there's not a lot of work, what I can say. There's a specific work which I had to do, and there's a lot of thinking, like what we can say, a time in between I'm doing work, and that's where the interesting idea come into your mind. Like this is my approach, creative approach. So what's your opinion on that whole hustle culture? Like you have to
Mhm.
outreach to a 50 leads and convert five and that kind of thing. I'm a little bit
Yeah.
shy on that hustling part. What's your opinion on that?
Well, here's the thing. I this is gonna be controversial, but honestly, I don't like to work too much. I mean,
Yeah,
my ideal type of a work day is just work 4 hours a day and that's it.
for
Um,
me, same.
I honestly don't and I mean, I don't know. It's just like to me, I just rather like just work intense, like in very intense sprints, and then just go ahead and disconnect and I don't know, watch TV or whatever, or just like I'd say watch some educational TV or whatever. But I don't know. I'm just very bad at just this hustle mentality and then just working a lot and I don't know. It's just I don't know. Maybe it's my levels of energy, whatever. I don't know. If it's just I'm just not the more. I think that's why I'm organized because I
Mhm.
want to make sure that the time that I spend it wisely. So I have, one of the things that I use is this. It's like a bullet journal. So I'm very
Mhm.
organized with that, and I have my tasks and everything that my highlights I put it there, and so that way my weekly reviews are very easy to do because I see what I'm doing and so to me, I try to be very organized so that I am sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So that I'm sure that the task that I'm supposed to be doing, I've done it, that I comply with my deadlines and so on and so forth. So I focus more on being productive, being like doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, having that clarity. And then that's it. If I don't have to work the rest of the day, then I chill, whatever. Or I look for I start working on, let's say, passion projects or I just maybe I need to work more. Maybe I'm a little bit lazy and I'm not the best example at hustle culture, but I don't know. This is just what I'm doing right now. Ask me maybe in 2 years, maybe I'm gonna be hustling more.
For me, it's same. I cannot hustle. Like when I have to work, when I get in the zone, I can work for 8 hours nonstop. Like I'm
Hmm.
working on edit, then I will work 8 hour nonstop, and I will not feel tired after that. But if you ask me to do that 8 hour sprint every day, it's not for me, and I cannot sustain that. So the hustle culture doesn't work for me for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I need to improve. Maybe I need to work more, but yeah, I don't know. I think that I thrive more when I am like when I have more time available
Mhm.
and yeah, I just focus on like certain sprints and things that I have to do and yeah. But yeah, but I feel I need to work more. So I'm not a good example. So don't follow me.
For sure. I'm not following my own advice because I don't work hard at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, how's it going with you in the clubhouse? Like, I've tried to be on the social audio and it's not my jam. I will watch a live stream for 3 hours, but I cannot listen only. That's not. So, how do you manage to like be interactive on the social audio?
Well, I think that I think that one of the things is that I am very like isolated here in my apartment. I live alone, so only with my little dog, and so I don't have like many opportunities to interact. Of course, I'm usually like doing some meetings with different people, like let's say clients or networking or things like that. But usually those meetings are kind of um, have some purpose behind it or have some maybe energy consumption there that's just associated with it and for some reason but then this type of casual talks like in a
Mhm.
Clubhouse are like more like when you're just talking with somebody that you know or whatever and the cool part is that usually the conversations that you have in your everyday life is with people that that you have some things in common. The difference is that these people then they're just talking about one topic in particular, and if you're interested about that topic and if you have something to say about the topic, then you don't care if you know that person or not, if you know the people in the room or not. I think the interesting is that you're all talking about the same thing, you're understanding each other, you're listening to each other, you're learning from each other, And so that's the type of rooms that I like to attend to, the type of that are more either that I learn a lot from them, like the ones that Chris Do used to do, because he's no longer there for some reason, or like people like that you can learn a lot, or the ones that are kind of a smaller audience where you can participate a lot and you can talk a lot and yeah. So I love that. So the one that I'm on, and actually today in, let's say like in 2 hours, in less than 2 hours, we have another meeting every Tuesday at 4. It's like a 4 Pacific Standard Time. And so what I like about that is that there's a lot of kind of like-minded people in terms of marketing. And we talk about different topics of marketing, and it's very, collaborative. A lot of people give their opinion and ask questions and so on and so forth. And so I like the environment because it's not, some rooms of Clubhouse and some, popular influencers that I'm not going to mention. I just don't like their attitude when they're in Clubhouse. They think that they are God. You're going to ask, a question, and sometimes, this attitude of, well, start by asking your question. What's your question or whatever? And dude, like I think that there is this saying that you make business with people that you like and trust, and sometimes you can trust somebody, but you cannot like it. So there are some things that I just don't like about certain people, and I'm not gonna say like names or whatever because I just don't want to talk trash to people. But there's some certain attitudes in people in Clubhouse are using the platform that they have this entitlement attitude that I'm the master here and you should come and ask your question clearly, and then start by saying a WA question like what is it, blah 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 blah. And I think that this attitude is not beneficial, because what I see a lot is people giving advice when they don't have the right context, and so people can see these these influencers, let's say, giving this advice, and they can take that advice and apply it where it's just not. I remember I asked one day a question like, how do I create content for my niche? And they say, okay, so what is your niche? And I say, well, the creative industry. And I say, well, but you need to dive deeper than that. And so, and then I was very confused, and I was like, oh my, that was the kind of the initial part. And then I went back and I hired Mike Janda again, and I say, oh my God, I need some help or whatever. And then he said, you know what? Take that advice with a grain of salt. It's not that they don't know what they are talking about. It's that the environment, the context is very limited. And so the advice that they can give you, just you need to take it with a grain of salt. You cannot just take it literally as if you were in a coaching session where lots of questions are being asked before some sort of advice is given. So I think that sometimes it's like this attitude of, I just want to prove how much I know. And in that attitude, they don't know that they are causing like some damage. And it's like this kind of, I don't know, this desire of just knowing things that fly. Like, you see how I replied that? You see how I knew what you were talking about? I know things. And dude, that attitude to me is it just sucks. I don't know. I don't like it. So, but I trust, because they are big influencers. They know what they're talking about. It's just that the ways that they do things, I just don't agree. So those kind of rooms, I just sometimes don't like it. I have learned to just not participate that much in those rooms, because I think that it can be, not useful, to say the least. And so, the rooms that I participate is just like rooms that I feel this good vibe, that people are collaborating, that people don't feel like this entitlement and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think for me, the bigger rooms where there's a massive audience, there is a marketing gimmick being played. Like they want to show their expertise, and behind the scene, they want to sell you something. So for me, they are not being interactive there because they want to show their expertise as quickly as possible to as many people as possible. And for that same reason, they will not give specific advices. They want
Yeah.
their advice to be palatable to everyone, and everyone can say, "Wow, you helped me! Wow, I can relate with that." So that's
Yeah.
they're targeting. But
Yeah.
what I've like had interesting experience with was the smaller groups. Like even on the pro calls which we have, the smaller breakout rooms are much more helpful than the whole pro call. Like when you're
Yeah.
working with only 2 or 3 people and when you're having communication, so that's a lot more helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because then you can be more interactive, ask questions, and not be concerned about saying something stupid.
Yeah.
Mm,
and
yeah.
and I think that the medium and the context matter a lot, because in a 60-second reel you cannot, reel or short or TikTok, you cannot explain the whole context behind that advice which you are giving. And for the reason, I've seen the comments under some of the videos, and they are completely missing the point. Most of them haven't seen the whole video where the clip is taken from, and they will like it was an interesting comment. I think it was about the delegation. The reel was about delegation. Like you charge this amount for, like you hire someone, 5,000. You charge your finder's fee and some profit margin on top of that, and that's how you become entrepreneur. Like that's how you do the business. Like from being a like a designer to being a businessman. That's how you work. So there was a lot of whole workshop being done behind, and there was a lot of context, but people saw that whole formula and like blasted the comments like, you are tricking people and you are like ripping off this poor souls, like this kind of comments. So I think even with the Twitter, in your I don't know what is the word limit there, you cannot like explain whole things, so you write quotes there. So that's the limitation. And for that same reason, I think the bigger communication like podcast or small interactive clubhouse rooms where people can understand the context is gaining the popularities. What's your opinion on that?
I think there are certain things that you should not share outside of context,
Mm-hmm.
because they get decontextualized and then
Yeah.
they get misunderstood, and then people complain like, why am I being judged for this? Well, you didn't provide context.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, like one of these days, Chris will share a reel that said about like you should hide your address if you're uh outside of the US or whatever, you from a third world country or whatever. I honestly don't know what is the context that I'm missing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that was terrible advice. And I don't mind saying that with names and whatever, because I don't mind criticizing Christo. He doesn't mind critics.
Mm-hmm.
What he minds
Yeah.
is just people talking trash behind his back or whatever. And I have no issues saying things as they are. So I totally disagree with that, because the world has changed. People are not looking. They're not looking for people in the US to have designs and that's it. They know that now we live in a globalized society where you can actually hire people from India, from Costa Rica, from any other country, and expect a high quality. Of course, if you're hiring somebody from Fiverr for $5 a logo, that's the quality you're going to get. You will be delusional thinking that you're going to get like a $20,000 value from a $5 project.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it is very. I honestly had a hard time not taking that personal,
Mm-hmm.
not taking offense on what he said, as if it was a defect that I was from a third world country. I think it's an advantage, because I don't pay $2,000 a month of rent, and so because of that, I can charge, let's say, $6,500 for a logo, and be okay with it, because I don't have to spend half of that in rent. So
Mm-hmm.
win for me. I mean, I'm not lacking anything. I'm lacking opportunities. Yes, it's going to be more difficult for me to do networking. Yes, it's going to be difficult for me because maybe I don't have, let's say, classmates that went to Harvard or that are working in Google or stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to take maybe more time to build those relationships. But still, I mean, it's possible. Now we have opportunities, and the quality that I can provide, is very high, and I don't have a problem saying that I'm from Costa Rica. Now, here's the thing. What I understand is that there's a thing of positioning. So how do you want to be known? So do I want to be known as the Costa Rican guy that does logos? No, that's not how I want to be perceived. And I think that you don't want to be perceived as the Indian guy who designs, because it's not relevant from where are you from. So in that sense, I don't put a big flag of Costa Rica as my main banner, you know? So it's not in one extreme. You don't want to be that blunt with the place where you are. If you're, nationalist, or you're very proud of your country or whatever, maybe that's not relevant for your business in that very positive way. But then it doesn't mean that I need to hide it. That's a whole different thing. And what he said specifically is that you should hide from your website where is that you're from. I think that's dishonest. That's just like dishonest right there. And I think that yes, you need to be strategic about your positioning, but one thing is being strategic about that positioning, but then another thing is just being dishonest about, where are you from, and trying to hide it. I remember that when I worked at Amazon, we had to deal a lot with racism, and this came from, of course, the US. And so sometimes when we receive a call, like they would say, can you transfer me to somebody that can actually speak English?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I didn't speak English. But you mean like somebody in the US? Yes, please. And I'm like, well, we don't have that option. So it's either me or just we're not going to help you today. You choose. And so when they ask, like, sometimes like, where are you from? We were, and I understand this is not the same for every call center or whatever, but I think this was right for, like, Amazon did. We were not pushed to say that we are from New York. That's bullshit. Like you're not from New York. Clearly I have an accent. Clearly I'm not from the States. So I have no issue saying, well, I'm located in Costa Rica. This is a call center that's in Costa Rica. What's the problem? There's nothing wrong with it. So I'm properly trained. I can clearly communicate with you because you're clearly understanding what I'm saying. So what is the problem? If there's a problem beyond that, that's called racism. And I just don't vibe with that. So I think that if there's a client that is going to have a problem to saying, oh, you're located in Costa Rica. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna. Well, thank you for filtering yourself out at this part of the stage, because I definitely want none of your business. So if you are one of the clients that have an issue with me being in Costa Rica, well, go look somebody from the States, because I have no intentions working with you. And so that's where I think that advice is really bad, because if you need to hide that from somebody, it means that somebody might see it and might have a negative reaction. Well, so be it. So be it in the first stages, so that they filter themselves out, and I don't have to deal with that kind of crap. So yeah, that's bad advice right there.
For sure. I completely agree with you on that. And I agree with the filtering part. Like, if they do not want to work with someone who is from Costa Rica or from India, then hell with it. Why do you want to work with them? I can personally guarantee that there are so many amazing people out there who doesn't care where you come from or who you are, and they just only care about the result and how good you are with them. So
I think that one of the days I remember that I was having some hesitation of creating content in English, and I went through all different stages, and I think the one that really helped me was Annalie Hanson, and she said like that she started like kind of that having that hesitation with, of course, English not being her first language, and she said that then with time and with feedbacks for some people, she actually discovered that this one of the easiest ways to brand yourself with your accent. And so that's one of the special things from you, so you don't have to hide it. That's one of the things that makes you special. And so I think that valuing what makes you different is really important when you're building your brand. And so hiding it it, hiding aspects of your life, uh like just yeah, it's just not right. And I there's aspects of my life that I don't share publicly because I don't want to,
Mhm.
but it's just like, yeah, I have the option to. It's just like I think that there are things that are relevant and things that are not relevant business wise, but I think that at the end of the day, I can choose whatever I shared about me or where I'm located. But just because, oh, I received an advice that I need to hide my address because then it's going to affect my business somehow, that's a whole different game. That is just like saying that you should hide who you are, that you should hide what makes you special, that you should, that is, oh my God, that's just very upsetting advice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when
So
you
make
are
sure to make a reel of this because I want.
for sure, for sure. I will definitely make a reel out of it, and I will share with the community because they need to know that there
Yeah.
are people who are ready to criticize or add valuable feedback to this, because I'm sure like he doesn't mean that hardly like you shouldn't show your address, but if we do not present our perspective, then how will he know that this is not something
Yeah.
which we find palatable? So that's the thing there. So, welcome back. We had to take a short pause. And I think I was saying about, like, yeah, I had that issue with that clearing out my accent and that kind of stuff. Like, I want to be more vulnerable. So, before designing, I had a science page and I was sharing content there. Like, the carousels were booming at the time. So,
Mhm.
that's the reason that I jumped into design. So, I was doing all kind of science and carousels and stuff like that. So interestingly, I grew it up to the 40,000 followers. So it was a big deal for me. Like I'm in my college,
Nice.
I'm not doing anything interesting in college. So I'll have to make use of this time and work on my design skill at the same time. I'm learning something new. So there I posted, it's an interesting case that there I posted that I think ISRO had launched a mission to the Mars. And I shared that post being from India, and there was some really interesting comment, and the comment with stick with me was that they can't even build the toilets, how come they are going to the Mars? And I was very surprised, and it was
Oh my God.
obviously racist, but at the same time I was surprised, wow. And like, yeah, so that was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think that the world is changing when it comes to, this type of people. Honestly, I don't see too much progress in the States itself. I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of division there, a lot of people that, I think that, and I don't want to get political or anything, but like recent political events kind of foster a lot of division and a lot of racism. And this idea, this stupid idea that if you're from a different country, then you have different skills or you have different capabilities or whatever. I think that what I would say is definitely true is that people from first world countries, they have access to more education, they have access to more resources, and so on and so forth. And people from third world countries, they have less access to those resources. The thing is, when it comes to design, the playing field is kind of level, because it's like we all have access to the same resources. And
Yeah.
actually people from the States are actually in a kind of disadvantage because they are paying this like very expensive loans
Hmm.
for their studies, and they have this pressure of paying them and having good jobs and so on and so forth. And I but I don't know, like I don't have that pressure. I don't have a loan that I need to pay, for the things that I learned. I already paid everything that I had to learn, and so I think that if anything, we have an advantage because
Yeah.
we can have very good quality and charge a decent price, where we can really, if I charge what I charge, and once I get consistent with my business, once it really totally full launches and start, having consistent business and whatever, having $100,000 per year is not going to be too far away, like for too long. But here in Costa Rica, like if you earn that amount of money, dude, like you're a millionaire. Like
Yeah.
You're rich. And so I think that if anything, like being from a third world country means that the things you have to spend, your expenses are really low, and you can move to. This is being done by a lot of people. Like what they're doing as digital nomads is that they're earning money from, let's say, the States or Europe or all these countries that have money, and then they're living in, let's say, Asia or in Central America, or let's say different countries where the cost of living is not that high, and they can live like kings because they earn like a decent amount of money. So I just think we just have advantages when it comes. Now, here's the thing: there is a culture like a mindset and a culture thing that third world countries we need to overcome. That's for sure. When it comes to, at least when it comes to Latin America, there's a lot of still, like, a lot of mindset issues, a lot of mental barriers that people need to overcome, because I think the trick about having the right mindset is to be able to subtract yourself from your context and acting as if you're a global citizen where everybody is having the same opportunities and everything. And yeah, so I think that if you just forget that you live in a third world country, you forget where you live, and you just like take advantage of the opportunity that comes your way, and you value who you are, what you know, that's it. Like, you don't have any disadvantage. So
And I'm very optimistic about this stuff because even with the current political situation and the stuff going on, I'm very optimistic that we are so much intertwined with our needs that we
yeah.
cannot afford to be racist. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, and I think the world is really evolving to a point where it's more it's more fair in lots of different ways. I think that a lot of people that are like very pessimistic about current situation in the world, and pandemic and a war and climate change, and there is a lot of challenges, and people think like like hell is breaking loose and everything is worse, and it's very easy to have this pessimistic view. But I think that one, all this crisis is just like a phase, and two, when we need to look at just the big picture, all the evolution that is going to come from this. So think about in terms of health, for instance, like how much health has evolved after this pandemic. The importance that people are putting into health is a whole different game prior to
Yeah.
the pandemic. And so there's a lot of different lessons that we're learning. I don't know about there in India, but here in Costa Rica, I remember that in the 90s, we have a lot of cases of diarrhea or things like that. And so what the people are starting to do is like putting, you know, hand washers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a stupid little words of everyday life that I just don't know. But yeah, place where you can wash your hands. And that became a law for restaurants. Like, you need to have a bathroom, you need to have all these things. But when you think about it, you don't know where all these things come from, and it's just unthinkable to imagine that you go to a restaurant, it doesn't have a restroom or something to wash your hands.
Yeah.
But yet prior to the 90s, that was kind of the rule. Nobody thought that was necessary. And so I think that whenever there's like this type of crisis, like, you learn different things as a society that now you need to evolve, and you have to. And so what happened in the Second World, it is just like so horrific that people are being careful not to repeat that over and over and over. What happened, for instance, in let's say with the atomic bombs and all this type of things, it was so horrific that people are just taking different measures to make sure that's not repeated. And so every crisis is an opportunity to create measures to prevent those things from happening in the future. One of the things that I know from studying laws is that the source of law, where the law comes from, it comes from history. So you cannot say, okay, let's make a law for when a Martian, an alien abducts you and takes you out. So it's like things that you don't have in your current reality. You cannot come up with laws for that. But once you go through those kind of things, and then then the law comes after that and say, okay, let's create some regulations to make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future. So that's one of the things that I see after all this crisis. War is going to be perceived a hell of a lot different after all this crisis. And so it happens with racism after different events that happen in the States. And let's say slavery, for instance, that is a real thing nowadays, but it's not normal as it was, like a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
Or women's rights, or even gay rights, or all this type of things. There's still a lot of progress to be done, but I think that society is becoming more aware of what is right and what is not. So it's like it's fair that you have a religion. It's fair that you choose what you believe, but it's not fair that you kill a person because they think differently. This is this type of things that becomes not just a thing of a country or whatever, is like a collective kind of knowledge that people will start saying, okay, this is right, this is not. But this comes out of crisis. No big change comes from a comfort zone. And so I see a lot of I see a lot of I see a lot of change coming out of all this combined crisis after this. But we're just so lucky that we're in a position where we can generate some income and go through this crisis. We just have to be brave and go through it. That's it.
For sure. Yeah, and even when you're like not directly affected by the crisis, there are moments where you feel like, yeah, I should do something about this. And this is very being empathetic. Like, yeah, I've for some reason I've avoided watching the news because it makes me, I get too emotional when I see those stories, whether they be true or not. But when I see those stories, it's not like I gets too emotional and that kind of stuff. So for the same reason, I've been avoiding Twitter and that kind of thing. But I think I'm always optimistic. Like, I want to give humanity a chance because we have just started only 10,000 years ago doing this properly. So I want to give us a fair game to play. Okay, interesting. And
and good for you that you're not watching news that often, because that has an impact on your mental health. I'm not that good at it. I fall into the trap of watching too many news, and then after a while I'm like super anxious and super and I'm like, I wonder how I get it to this point. And then I think about everything that I've been watching lately, and it's just ridiculous. But I just need to stop, watching so many news. And because here's the thing, the news is tricky because you never know what is the full picture of things. And if you start watching the news, of course they're going to portray a very tragic a reality. And it's because that's news. It's exactly the portion of the tragic reality. So what happens is that if you watch a lot of news, you're going to think that the world is just a tragedy. But what happens is the boring things, the happy moments, those are not news. Nobody's, talking about that. So this can just make a distortion on the perception we have of the world, definitely.
And I think biologically we are wired to be more affected by the fear and negative things. That's how we survive. Like, we have to be aware there's a lion in this grass and we have to be fearful about that. But we don't care about the flower blooming there. So
so let's talk about fear for a moment, because I think I have very good notion about fear, and I think this is very different from what I've been hearing. I think it's very common. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you think is fear, and what do you think, tell me, what do you think about fear and what we should do about it?
I will go biologically. Fear is that there to avoid you making some fatal mistakes. Like, you should be fearful of fire, you should be fearful of height, you should be fearful of drowning and that kind of stuff. So, and even with the social communication, I think genetically we are wired to that. We want to please everyone, to be part of the group, because that was a big thing when we were evolving as a civilization. Because we do not want to be, we can say, sidecasted from the group, because we have different opinion. So we had the mentality that we want to be a part of group, and even if it means sacrificing our own opinion. So for me, the societal fear and the fear of not doing anything stupid comes from there.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's amazing. That you have that view. I think that fear is very misunderstood nowadays. For instance, you hear this type of phrases, don't fear. It's like, what do you mean don't fear? And or what people say, like, fight the fears or stuff like that. Or so people have a weird relationship with fear. And I think that what happens is that we have all this is the theory, this is just my theory, this don't pay attention to me, but it's just my theory. I think that you have like a dashboard in your mind. There are things that, for instance, your if you have a car, like your car is going to say, hey, you should change your oil. The car is going to tell you you should do that, but the car doesn't have the possibility to do it by itself. So you are the one in charge of doing that. So for instance, in your body, you are a team. So you're not that yourself. So you have a team. Your body is going to tell you, hey, I'm hungry. So the body cannot just immediately just take control of yourself and go and eat something. It doesn't work like that. You are in control, but he's going to use that kind of dashboard and tell you, hey, I'm hungry. So that the behavior that is promoting, that is motivating, is eating. If you're thirsty, then it's the sign is that dashboard telling you, go ahead and drink some water or whatever. And so I think that fear is just part of that dashboard that you have. Fear is another indicator, but for some reason it's not that clear as what is the behavior that we should do. And so it's like, I'm hungry, eat. Very simple. I'm thirsty, drink. Very simple. I have fear, like, then what? It's like, for some reason we don't have that clarity of what is the next action, right? And so I think that people, because they don't have that clarity, it's like, oh no, that I'm afraid of doing that, I'm not doing it. And so I don't think that's what fear means. Or I don't think fear means, oh yeah, whatever, let's do it, boom. So there's a reason why you feel that, or you feel that thing. And so I believe that the message that your body is saying, be careful, because this might put you in a danger of some sort. Yeah. So this is dangerous, be careful. But that doesn't mean don't do it. It means be careful. And so what you need to understand, the action that you need to do is first identify what is the fear, because sometimes the fear is not real. Sometimes the fear is magnified so that you can pay attention. And so it's like, okay, let's really evaluate the real measure, the real size of the danger that I'm up against. And sometimes you can, if you do that exercise, you realize, oh, the danger is not such a thing. There's not such a thing as danger. I'm not in danger here. And so then after you evaluate, the risk, then you decide to take action or not. And so I think that fear is just like that indication, that red light that said, hey, this could be dangerous. Evaluate before you move forward. Yeah. And so if you understand it that way, next time that you feel that fear, you're not going to get paralyzed, because you say, it doesn't mean don't do it. It means evaluate the risk, see how real it is, and move forward. And so it could be, yes, this is risky. So you're going to take a calculated risk. So for instance, I was very afraid to go to Mexico to do this digital nomad kind of thing. And so does it mean that I didn't have to do it? No. It means that, well, there's a lot of risk involved in that. And so what I had to do is just evaluate the risk, see what ways I could have to mitigate that risk the best I could, and then act carefully. That's it. That's what fear means. And so if you, the problem is that if you don't understand what fear means, then it can limit you. You can understand it as a signal that you should not do something. And so you can ask people like, what you don't do this kind of thing? Oh, because I'm afraid of blah blah. Why don't you speak in public? Oh, because I'm afraid. Why don't you start a YouTube channel? Because I'm afraid. And so this fear becomes the wrong signal. Doesn't mean stop. It means be careful. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's my
And
theory.
yeah, I'm gonna go full scientist on this, because I think the way we are wired, that the fears which we had were genuine at the time, but the technology and tools and everything in society evolved so fast that our body didn't catch up to that, all that stuff happening around us.
Totally.
So the fear of dark is very legit in when we are living in the jungle, because we do not want to go out and get eaten by a tiger. So that was a legit
Exactly.
fear. But now it's something which you have to just flick the switch and the light will come on. So that's there.
Yeah.
And also there's the fear of unknown. Like if I start my YouTube channel, then I don't know what will happen. So there's uncertainty. So that's what makes people fearful. And I think I will make a transit to there. Like we are opening a lot more dimension when we are going into this Web 3.0 and Metaverse kind of thing. Like I was watching this, I have not completely watched, but this interview of Mark Zuckerberg with Alex Friedman. And interestingly, he asked him to like the test they had, like show us you are not a robot. So he gave him a worksheet and asked him to circle all the like traffic lights on that image. So just to clarify that Mark Zuckerberg is not a robot. So, and on this conversation they were having discussion about the metaverse and how it can affect the work culture. So I'm thinking we are opening a lot, what we can say, a can of worms which we are not aware about, like how to deal with it. We are not even sure about how to deal with this, the stuff we are creating with this two-dimensional social media and kind of thing. And I'm sure like what the social media has done, that it united the world in a very different way. Like you can sympathize with the pain and happiness of a person living like in USA. At the same time you can sympathize with a person living in India or in China or whatever. But when it makes us and I'm thinking that the issues we are facing psychologically, like I'm not sure that the scientists who were working in the 20th century or even before that ever thought about being like dopamine detox being a thing. Like you have to resist yourself for being too pleasured. So that will be always the case there. And with the Web 3.0, I don't know what will be opening. I'm skeptical on that front.
And you know what? Like the other day, I was talking in a room that was of philosophy, and they were talking like the concept of reality, and they were saying if this is reality or not. And so, what makes reality? And so, like if you go to a metaverse and all this virtual world, like how real is this? Because they were talking about a girl that was raped in the metaverse, and people were like, how could this happen? And it was very like, to understand that is really complicated, because you really understand like first, like people think that this thing of the metaverse is like very new, but no, there's this web video game, like it's called the Second Life, that actually has years of existing, and people they actually have a second life there. And they meet people and have couples and stuff like that, and so they start buying like different things to be able to interact there. And so what they said is that they hacked the kind of the character there, the kind of the avatar or whatever, and that's how like many people like, or many guys like kind of raped this girl online. And so they were talking about, well, wait a minute, like you're talking about a character, you're talking about like just a fictional thing, or how real is this? Or so this started posting all this type of questions. But I agree with you, we're not ready yet to understand how what everything means, how everything is going to affect us. And but I would say that we would be making a mistake thinking that that's not real, because what is real is that what we can perceive with our brains, and with our mind, and so that reality, so it's like the fact that you cannot touch it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So okay, so it doesn't exist because you cannot smell it, or because you cannot see it, or because you cannot hear it. What happens if you lose the sense of the smell? Like when I had COVID, for instance, I lost it. Doesn't mean that then the world around me is not real. So what doesn't mean that something is real? Is because I see it, or is because I touch it? What if I am in a bed and I cannot move? So then the rest of the world is not real. So what we need to understand is that for our brains, everything that we can kind of perceive in any type of way is reality. Our brains are not wired to make a difference between something that is not real and something that is not real. And so, yes, we can play the video game and our avatar can get killed, and that will be different from we being shoot or anything like that. It's different. We adapt. But the thing is that is when you're talking about then a metaverse where there is a different level of immersion, people take it like super seriously. For instance, this lady was telling us how like she knows people that are actually couples for years, like for 7 years, let's say, within this world, and outside they don't know each other, and they are having this relationship within this Second Life kind of game, and they know each other, they go hang out, they have a whole social life there in that other dimension. And so yeah, I have to agree with you, like we're not ready to process that, and so it's just like this is going to be a discovery.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I don't know.
And I think the culture dictates the marketing and the marketing dictates the culture. So these are two facets of our reality that I'm sure pretty soon we'll be working on 3D websites or Web 3.0, because it's going to happen really soon. Maybe in the 5 years, we might be talking in the metaverse. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm actually working with a friend of mine that he's exploring the all this blockchain thing, and he gave me an advice. Maybe I can give it to you, which is go look for hackathons and hackathons of blockchain. And so there you can offer your services, or you can offer your help, let's say, as a UI designer, and that way you can maybe help them build a team and help them win a project. And so with that, you make a lot of connections, and you can end up with a piece that you can put in your portfolio. And so it's just a way to enter in this universe. But for me, and I think that for you it's a little bit similar, but for me, the industry that I'm focused on, which is the creative industry, has a lot to do with the metaverse and all this type of things, and blockchain and Bitcoin and all this type of things, because there's a creative side that is getting involved with NFTs and all this type of things. But that's a whole different topic, and I don't want to get into it because I don't know anything about it.
For sure. And for me, I'm targeting the mental health industries now, and I'm sure we'll be like facing a lot of new issues, and people will need a lot more help with this Web 3.0. So Alejandro, it's been a wonderful conversation. Please let us know, like where the person who are listening or watching this, where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at centorstudio.com. That's my website, or in Instagram, alejandro.centorstudio. And yeah, I'm available there at on Instagram. That's kind of the best way to reach me out, and send me a DM if you want. And yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I mean, talking to you, to me, it's really fun, and we share a lot of things, and it's something that I just can do for fun at any time.
For sure. And all the links will be in the description, so please make sure to check him out. He's a wonderful guy. Okay, thank you for joining this.